The new instructor. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Defense Academy gleamed against the purple sky of Centaurus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Commander Maya Rodriguez stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes scanning the sprawling campus below. After 15 years of diplomatic negotiations, humans had finally secured a teaching position at the most prestigious military academy in the known universe. And she was the one they'd chosen to prove humanity's worth. Commander Rodriguez, a melodious voice, chimed behind her. The faculty council awaits. Maya turned to face Administrator Valforix, a towering being composed of shifting light patterns contained within a translucent exoskeleton. Even after months of preparation on Earth, the sight of such alien life forms still filled her with wonder. "Thank you, Administrator," Maya replied, straightening her midnight blue uniform. "I trust the Council has reviewed my proposed curriculum." The light patterns within Valforix's form swirled in what Maya had learned to recognize as discomfort. "They have. There is considerable concern about your methods." Maya allowed herself a small smile. Of course there was concern. Everything about humans concerned the galactic community. Their adaptability, their endurance, their inexplicable ability to continue functioning after sustaining injuries that would kill most sentient species, all of it marked them as something dangerous, something unpredictable. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater, its curved walls embedded with bioluminescent organisms that pulsed in gentle patterns. 12 beings of varying shapes, sizes, and states of matter sat in a semicircle before her. Some floated in containment fields, others rested in pools of specific atmospheric compositions, and a few sat in what might generously be called chairs. High Chancellor Zixtal, a being composed of interlinked crystal matrices, spoke first. "Commander Rodriguez, we have reviewed your proposal to introduce human combat techniques into our curriculum. The Council has reservations." "With respect, Chancellor," Maya responded, her voice firm but diplomatic. "Those same reservations were voiced when humans first joined the Galactic Federation. We've since proven ourselves valuable allies." "In crisis situations, yes," rumbled Council Member Crox, his massive gas giant form swirling with agitation. "But this is an educational institution. Our students come from species with vastly different physical capabilities and limitations. Your proposed training methods would be impossible for many of them." Maya stepped forward, activating the holographic display in the center of the chamber. "That's where you're wrong, Council Member. I've spent the last year studying the physiological capabilities of every species represented in the student body. My curriculum isn't about making them fight like humans. It's about teaching them to understand how humans fight." The display showed footage from Earth's military history, carefully selected to demonstrate human adaptability rather than brutality. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our physical capabilities," Maya continued. "It's our ability to analyze, adapt, and overcome. That's what I want to teach your students." A flutter of appendages and tentacles signaled the Council's unease. Chancellor Zixtal's crystalline form chimed softly. "You propose to begin with a class of 20 students." "Yes, volunteers only from various species. A pilot program to prove the concept. And if they are injured during your instruction." Maya's expression remained neutral, but her eyes blazed with conviction. "Every student who volunteers will understand the risks. But consider this. In real combat situations, they may face human opponents. Wouldn't you rather they learn about our capabilities in a controlled environment?" The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't going anywhere. They were part of the galactic community now, for better or worse. Understanding them wasn't just an academic exercise. It was a necessity. Finally, Administrator Valforix's light patterns shifted to a more decisive configuration. "I move to approve the pilot program, with quarterly reviews and strict safety protocols." The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. As Maya left the council chamber, she received her first class roster. 20 names in various alien scripts, 20 beings about to embark on an educational experience unlike anything in the galaxy. Her first student arrived the next morning, a Verdani named Zeph, whose plant-based biology allowed him to regenerate from almost any injury. His root-like feet pattered nervously on the training room floor as he approached Maya. "Instructor," he rustled, chlorophyll-based blood giving his leaves a deeper green tinge of anxiety. "The others say humans can continue fighting even after losing significant portions of their body mass. Is this true?" Maya demonstrated a basic fighting stance. "Would you like to find out?" By the end of the first lesson, Zeph had learned two crucial things about humans. They never started with their most impressive capabilities, and they took genuine joy in teaching others. As he left the training room, still slightly dazed but somehow more confident, Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. One student down, 19 to go. And after them, an entire galaxy of minds to change, one lesson at a time. The message she'd sent to Earth that evening was brief but significant. Phase 1 successful. The revolution in galactic military education begins now. In her quarters that night, Maya reviewed the profiles of her remaining students. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to bridge the vast gulf of understanding between species. She'd need every bit of human ingenuity and patience to succeed. But then, that was exactly why they'd chosen her for this mission. Humans didn't just survive challenges. They thrived on them. And Maya Rodriguez was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. Breaking point. The Academy's training arena hummed with a cacophony of alien voices as Maya's students filed in for their fourth week of instruction. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate beings from every known sentient species, had become something of a spectacle. Observation pods lined the walls, filled with faculty members and students who'd come to watch the controversial human combat class in action. Kavax, a crystalline luminian whose faceted body refracted light in dazzling patterns, raised what passed for a hand. "Instructor Rodriguez, is it true that humans once fought wars using only chemical propellant weapons and processed metal?" "Not only true," Maya replied, pulling up a holographic display, "but those principles still form the foundation of our combat doctrine. Today, we're going to learn why." The class's star pupil, a Nixilian named Thrax, shifted his gelatinous form in what Maya had learned was disapproval. Nixilians prided themselves on their advanced psychic abilities, viewing physical combat as primitive. He'd been increasingly vocal about his disdain for human methods. "With respect, instructor," Thrax's telepathic voice resonated in everyone's mind. "How is ancient human warfare relevant to modern galactic defense? Our neural disruptors and psychic barriers render physical combat obsolete." Maya smiled, an expression that still unnerved some of her alien students. "Cadet Thrax, would you care to demonstrate your neural disruptor technique? I believe you scored highest in your year." The Nixilian's transparent body pulsed with pride as he floated to the center of the arena. Other students backed away, knowing the power of Nixilian psychic attacks. Maya stood calmly, hands clasped behind her back. "Your objective," she stated, "is to incapacitate me using standard Nixilian combat techniques. Begin whenever you're ready." Thrax's form glowed with psychic energy. The air crackled as he launched a neural disruption wave powerful enough to stun a Cranaxian war beast. Maya didn't move. The wave hit her full force, and nothing happened. "Impossible." Thrax's telepathic voice carried genuine shock. "Your neural patterns should be completely scrambled." Maya tapped the small device barely visible behind her ear. "Quantum neural dampener. Human engineers developed it after our first encounter with psychic species. Cost me about a week's salary. Now, would you like to try physical combat?" The observation pods erupted with murmurs. Thrax's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been embarrassment or anger. You cheated." "No, cadet." Maya's voice carried across the arena. "I adapted. That's what humans do. We study our opponents, we identify their advantages, and we develop countermeasures. Sometimes those countermeasures are technological, sometimes tactical, sometimes purely physical. But we never, ever assume that any single approach is foolproof. She turned to address the entire class. Your species all evolved remarkable abilities. Psychic powers, regeneration, energy manipulation, capabilities that humans can only dream of. But you've become so reliant on those abilities that you've forgotten the most important lesson of combat. Always have a backup plan. Zeph, the Verdani student, rustled thoughtfully. Is that why humans still train in primitive weapons? As a backup. Exactly. Maya activated another holographic display, showing various human martial arts. Every technique you see here was developed by beings with no special powers, no extraordinary abilities beyond their determination to survive. We keep these skills not because we're primitive, but because we understand that true combat readiness means being prepared for every possibility. The lesson continued, but Thrax remained silent, his usually brilliant form dimmed with contemplation. After class, he lingered in the arena. Instructor, his telepathic voice was quieter now. I wish to apologize for my arrogance. But I must ask, how do your people do it? How do you continue fighting when your primary abilities are neutralized? Maya considered her answer carefully. We never assume we have primary abilities, Thrax. Everything we have, we earn through trial and error, through failure and adaptation. That's not weakness. It's our greatest strength. The Nexilian's form pulsed with new patterns. Would you teach me? Not just the techniques, but the human way of thinking about combat. That, Maya smiled, is exactly why I'm here. Word of the confrontation spread through the academy like a quantum wave collapse. By evening, Maya's inbox was flooded with requests from students wanting to join her next class. The faculty council scheduled an emergency session to discuss the implications of human combat philosophy on traditional galactic military doctrine. In her quarters that night, Maya added a new entry to her report to Earth Command. Cultural integration proceeding faster than anticipated. Request permission to expand program ahead of schedule. The response came within hours. Permission granted. Show them what humanity can teach. As she prepared for bed, Maya caught her reflection in the window. Beyond her quarters, the 3 moons of Centaurus Prime cast their light over an academy that was beginning to understand. Humans weren't just another species to be studied. They were teachers who could reshape the galaxy's understanding of combat, survival, and adaptation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students eager to learn the human way. Maya Rodriguez, first human instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy, was ready to show them all that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, their determination, or even their adaptability. It was their ability to teach others how to be just as unstoppable. The attack came during what should have been a routine training simulation. Maya's class had expanded to 50 students, and they were practicing emergency response scenarios in the Academy's zero-gravity chamber when the first explosion rocked the station. This isn't part of the simulation, Maya announced, her voice cutting through the initial confusion. The chamber's artificial gravity snapped back online as emergency protocols engage. Battle stations, everyone. This is real. The Academy's warning sirens began their haunting multi-tonal wail, a sound designed to be recognizable to all known sentient species. Through the chamber's transparent walls, they could see ships emerging from quantum space, sleek, predatory vessels bearing the infamous markings of the Scarlet Concordat, the most notorious pirate fleet in the Outer Rim. Instructor, Zeph's leaves trembled with more than just the station's vibrations. The Concordat hasn't raided this deep in Federation space in 50 cycles. Why would they? The graduation ceremony. Thrax's telepathic voice resonated with sudden understanding. Half the Galactic Defense Council is here for tomorrow's ceremonies. Maya was already moving, her mind racing through scenarios and solutions. Computer, tactical display. A holographic map materialized, showing the pirates' approach vectors. They've cut off the main evacuation routes. The council members will be trapped in the diplomatic quarter. Her students gathered around the display, their diverse forms creating a living tableau of galactic cooperation. Kavax's crystalline body refracted the holographic light as she analyzed the tactical display. Their formation suggests they have inside information about our security protocols. Agreed. Maya nodded, which means we can't rely on standard response procedures. They'll be expecting those. She turned to face her students, seeing not the uncertain cadets who'd first entered her class, but warriors who'd learned to think beyond their species' limitations. This is exactly what we've been training for. Not just combat, but adaptation, innovation, the human way. Thrax's gelatinous form pulsed with determination. What are your orders, instructor? Maya smiled, and this time, none of her students found it unnerving. We're going to show the Concordat why attacking a school full of beings trained in human combat techniques was a very, very bad idea. Here's the plan. The pirates had expected resistance, of course. They'd planned for the Academy's standard security forces, for the automated defense systems, even for the presence of council security details. What they hadn't planned for was a Verdani cadet using photosynthetic abilities to create smoke screens in precisely calculated patterns, allowing a squad of Luminian students to reflect concentrated light beams through the haze, creating phantom ship signatures that played havoc with targeting systems. They definitely hadn't expected an Exilian psychic prodigy to coordinate his attacks with old-style human EMF disruption techniques, creating feedback loops that left their neural shields worse than useless. And they absolutely hadn't anticipated that the human combat instructor who taught these cadets would understand exactly how to combine all these abilities in ways their originators had never imagined. Maintenance shaft Delta 7 secured, Zeph reported, his vegetable biology, allowing him to extend sensors through the station's hyperponics systems. Council members are being evacuated through the secondary routes now. Maya nodded, directing her makeshift command center from the training chamber. Kavax, status on the enemy flagship. The Luminian cadets' facets flickered with satisfaction. Their quantum drive is completely disoriented by our reflected false signatures. They couldn't make a clean jump if they wanted to. Through the viewport, Maya watched as the pirate fleet's formation began to break down. Their carefully planned attack was falling apart in the face of tactics they couldn't have possibly prepared for. Federation response ships would arrive within the hour, but Maya suspected the battle would be over before then. Instructor. Thrax's telepathic call carried urgency. 3 boarders have breached level 12, near the quantum physics lab. They're carrying. Let me guess, Maya replied, already moving toward the access shaft. Nexilian neural disruptors. Yes, but modified with, are those human components. Maya checked her sidearm. A simple projectile weapon that most advanced species considered hopelessly primitive. Then it's time for your final lesson in human combat philosophy. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. The confrontation in the quantum physics lab would later become required viewing at every military academy in the Federation. 3 pirate boarders, armed with the most sophisticated hybrid weapons money could buy, against 1 human instructor and a handful of cadets who'd learned to think beyond the limitations of their species. The pirates had neural disruptors. Maya's students had balls of Verdani pollen that played havoc with electronic systems. The pirates had quantum phase shields. The cadets had Luminian light tricks that made those shields worse than useless. The pirates had centuries of tactical experience. Maya had taught her students something far more valuable: how to improvise. When Federation forces finally arrived, they found the pirate fleet in disarray, their flagship disabled by tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. The Academy's after-action report would require several addendums just to explain how a class of cadets had managed to repel a Concordat raid using techniques that combined ancient human combat principles with abilities from a dozen different species. In her quarters that night, Maya composed her report to Earth Command. She started several times before settling on the simplest truth. Today, we proved that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic defense isn't our technology, our determination, or even our combat techniques. It's our ability to show others how to transcend their own limitations. Request permission to expand the program to all Federation military academies. The response was immediate and unprecedented, bearing the signatures of both Earth Command and the Galactic Defense Council. Permission granted. The galaxy needs more than just human soldiers. It needs human teachers. Maya looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the Scarlet Concordat was spreading word of their defeat, and with it, a new understanding of why humans had earned their place in the galactic community. Not through force of arms, but through force of innovation, and through their willingness to share that innovation with others. Human ingenuity. The Academy's main amphitheater had never been this crowded. Representatives from every Federation member species packed the chamber, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of galactic civilization. Maya stood at the podium, her students arrayed behind her, no longer just cadets, but proven warriors who defended the Academy against impossible odds. The Scarlet Concordat's attack, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space, wasn't just a failed raid. It was a watershed moment in galactic military history, not because we won, but because of how we won. Holoprojectors activated, showing footage from the battle. A Verdani cadet using photosynthesis to create tactical cover. A Luminian student turning their crystalline body into a weapons-grade reflector. An Exilian psychic coordinating attacks using human battlefield communication techniques. For too long, Maya continued, we've treated our species' differences as barriers. The Verdani excel at biological adaptation, so they focus solely on those techniques. The Luminians master light manipulation, never looking beyond those abilities. Even humans, we've often relied too heavily on our adaptability, forgetting that true strength comes from learning from others. She gestured to her students. These cadets proved that the future of galactic defense lies not in perfecting our individual abilities, but in learning to combine them in ways no one has ever imagined. Thrax floated forward, his gelatinous form glowing with pride. Before Commander Rodriguez's class, I believed physical combat was beneath my species. Now I understand that every technique, every approach, has value when properly integrated. The footage showed Thrax combining his psychic abilities with human hand-to-hand combat principles, creating a hybrid fighting style that had left the pirates' security systems useless and their troops confused. Kavak stepped up next, her crystalline form catching the light. Humans taught us that innovation isn't about having the most advanced technology or the strongest natural abilities. It's about using what you have in unexpected ways. The display showed her turning simple maintenance corridor lights into devastating weapons by applying principles from human mirror warfare tactics. Zeph rustled forward, his leaves swaying with confidence that would have been unthinkable months ago. Most importantly, we learned that teaching is as valuable as fighting. The Concordat failed not because they faced superior forces, but because they faced warriors who'd learned to think beyond traditional limitations. The council members watched intently as the footage showed Zeph using his plant biology to create organic sensor networks throughout the station, a technique that combined Verdani abilities with human surveillance tactics. High Chancellor Zixtal's crystalline form chimed thoughtfully. You propose to expand this training program to all Federation academies. Yes, Maya replied. Not just combat training, but a complete overhaul of how we approach military education. Every species has unique strengths. It's time we learn to combine those strengths instead of relying on them individually. The chamber erupted in discussion, hundreds of alien voices debating the implications. Maya waited patiently, knowing that what she was proposing would fundamentally change how the galaxy approached both warfare and education. Finally, Administrator Valforix's light patterns shifted to a formal configuration. The Council has reviewed the battle data. Your students accomplished more with improvised hybrid techniques than our standard forces could have with conventional methods. The question is, can this be replicated on a larger scale? Maya smiled. That's the beauty of the human approach, Administrator. We don't just teach techniques. We teach others how to teach. Every one of my students is now capable of instructing others in these hybrid combat methods." She turned to face the assembled representatives. The Scarlet Concordat thought they were attacking a school. Instead, they faced the future of galactic warfare. Warriors who understand that true strength comes from combining our abilities in ways our enemies can never predict. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, orders went out to every Federation military installation. Human combat instructors would be integrated into all training programs, with Maya students serving as the first wave of teaching assistants. In her quarters that night, Maya reviewed messages from military academies across the galaxy, all requesting training programs. But one message stood out, a personal note from Earth Command. "Commander Rodriguez, you were sent to teach aliens about human combat techniques. Instead, you've taught the galaxy something far more valuable. That humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight, but our ability to help others transcend their own limitations. Well done." She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the next generation of galactic defenders was about to learn what her students had discovered. That the most powerful force in the universe isn't any single species' abilities, but the infinite possibilities that arise when those abilities are combined with human ingenuity and shared without reservation. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had sparked that change not through force of arms, but through force of education. Maya Rodriguez, first human combat instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy, had done more than teach aliens how to fight like humans. She taught them how to think beyond the very concept of species limitations. A new understanding. 5 years after the Scarlet Concordat's failed attack, the Galactic Defense Academy had transformed beyond recognition. Where once stood segregated training facilities designed for individual species, now sprawled interconnected combat arenas where beings from across the galaxy learned to combine their abilities in ways that would have seemed impossible half a decade ago. Maya walked through the Academy's central corridor, now designated the Rodriguez Wing, despite her protests, watching as students from 100 worlds trained together. A Verdani instructor, Zeph, her former student, demonstrated how to combine photosynthetic abilities with Luminian light manipulation techniques, creating battlefield conditions that could adapt in real time to any threat. "Commander," a familiar telepathic voice resonated. Thrax, now head of the Academy's Tactical Integration Department, floated beside her. His gelatinous form had taken on the more structured patterns common to senior Nexilian educators. The latest combat effectiveness reports have arrived from the Outer Rim. Maya nodded, studying the data on her neural interface. The statistics were impressive. Piracy down 78%, successful planetary defense rates up 92%, and most importantly, casualties in combat situations reduced by 85%. But it wasn't just the numbers that mattered. "Look at this," she pointed to a particular incident report. A Cranaxian defense force combining their natural armor abilities with Verdani regenerative techniques and human tactical adaptability. They held off a privateering fleet without a single casualty on either side. The pirates surrendered when they realized their weapons couldn't penetrate the defense grid. Thrax confirmed, his form pulsing with satisfaction. "Many of them have since enrolled in our rehabilitation program. They're particularly interested in the hybrid combat classes." They reached the observation deck overlooking the Academy's largest training arena. Below, Kivax, now the Academy's chief combat integration specialist, was teaching a class that would have seemed like pure fantasy 5 years ago. Crystalline Luminians learning to refract not just light, but Nexilian psychic energy, creating defensive barriers that could stop both physical and mental attacks. "Chancellor Zixtal is retiring," Thrax mentioned casually, his telepathic voice carrying a hint of amusement. "The Council is considering a rather unprecedented replacement." Maya raised an eyebrow. "They're really going to do it? A human chancellor of the Galactic Defense Academy?" "Not just any human," Thrax replied. "They'd want you, Commander. Your methods have revolutionized not just how we fight, but how we think about species interaction entirely. The diplomatic corps has reported a 60% decrease in interspecies conflicts since implementing your integration protocols. Maya watched as a group of new cadets entered the arena below, humans among them, no longer a rarity but an integral part of the Academy's fabric. They moved with the confidence of beings who knew they weren't limited by their species' traditional roles. "When I first arrived here," she said quietly, "the Council thought I was going to teach aliens how to fight like humans. But that was never the point, was it?" "No," Thrax agreed. "You taught us something far more valuable. That every species' limitations are self-imposed. That true strength comes not from perfecting our own abilities, but from learning to see how all abilities can work together." A commotion near the arena's entrance drew their attention. A delegation of Scarlet Concordat representatives, former pirates who'd become some of the Academy's most enthusiastic supporters, was arriving for a scheduled cultural exchange program. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "They're calling it the Rodriguez Doctrine now," Thrax said. "The principle that military strength isn't about superior firepower or advanced technology, but about understanding how different species' abilities can complement each other." Maya smiled, remembering her first day at the Academy. The skepticism she'd faced, the doubts she'd had to overcome. Humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't our resilience, our adaptability, or even our combat techniques. It was our ability to show others that those qualities aren't unique to humans. They're universal potentials waiting to be unlocked. As if to emphasize her point, the arena below erupted in a dazzling display of combined abilities. Verdani organic constructs amplified by Luminian light manipulation, protected by Nixilian psychic shields, all coordinated using human tactical principles. It was beautiful, efficient, and completely unlike anything any single species could have achieved alone. "The council meeting is tomorrow," Thrax said. "They'll formally offer you the chancellor position." Maya watched as her former students, now instructors themselves, taught the next generation of galactic defenders. Each of them had taken what they'd learned about human combat philosophy and combined it with their own species' abilities in ways she'd never imagined. "You know," she said, "when Earth Command first assigned me here, they said I was supposed to prove humanity's worth to the galaxy." She gestured at the training arena, where dozens of species worked together in perfect harmony. "I think we proved something much more important, that every species has worth, and that true strength comes from learning to combine those strengths, rather than compete with them." Thrax's form pulsed with what had become his equivalent of a smile. "So, will you accept the position?" Maya Rodriguez, first human instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy, looked out at the legacy she'd helped create. Not just a new way of fighting, but a new way of understanding what was possible when species worked together. "Yes," she said finally, "because there's still so much more we can learn from each other." The galaxy had changed, and humanity had been the catalyst, not through superior strength or advanced technology, but through the simple, powerful idea that every species had something to teach and something to learn. The age of isolated species development was over. The age of unlimited potential had begun.